does make a lot of sense to put this topic out. I'd love to have some interactive stuff from you all. You can put it in the chat, or if you want to speak, let me know. I can unmute you. And so if we I'm not giving the slides that I had last time, just one slide about music theory and its practical application. Very truly, theory is not just about music literacy. It is music. I think most of you musicians, teachers, and if there are senior students will agree with this statement. Theory enables and empowers us to put into practice the script, the structure, the concepts, and the context. And with all this, we are able to communicate our music as performers. So basically, theory and practice of music are two halves that make up a whole to become complete. Without either one of them, the other is incomplete. The theoretical learning is not just an end in itself. To be meaningful, to have some kind of meaning in what we are doing and learning, it needs to be applied to the music we play and the music also that we listen to and enjoy. I wonder how many of you have listened to music and thought about what's really happening in it. Is there a key change happening? Can I get the time signature of this music? Is that a perfect cadence at the end? Those are all theoretical concepts. And it adds to the meaning, it adds to the understanding. And every single concept in theory of music finds its expression in sound, which is music. So we're going to launch straight into some pieces, starting with the acoustic guitar. I'd just like to say one more thing, that when we look at a piece of music, more often than not, we take a lot of things for granted. We look at the notes, yeah, we know these notes, we look at the time signature, we know it, but why do we know it? How do we know it? It's because you have studied theory of music. You look at some terms, you know those also. So it's really incomplete. Performance is incomplete without the knowledge of theory. So we're going to launch into an initial grade piece for acoustic guitar, just to show you that even at the initial grade, the concepts are there. There is so much in it which comes from music theory. And at this point, I'd like to welcome all my co-hosts today. We have Ritvik Bhattacharya for guitar. We have Priya Chaturvedi and Akriti Gupta for piano. We have Faith for violin, and we have Gopal from Kochi for electronic keyboard. Unfortunately, we did the singing on Monday, so those who missed out on the singing, it was a very interesting one with the singing, but you'll get the recording of it. So over to you, Ritvik. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And good evening, everyone. I'm glad you all could make it. So we're going to start with an initial level piece. And like ma'am said earlier, music theory and music learning is kind of indivisible. Whether you actively take theory lessons or not, you're always learning some part of some concept of theory. And even at the initial level, when you're starting off, you can see there's loads of evidence of lots of theoretical concepts being present all over. So let's jump into this piece. This is called Stegosaurus Strut by Nick Paulsland, and we have been instructed to play this heavily. So we're going to explore what this term means, and we're going to look at a few concepts of theory, namely playing in simple time, following performance directions, dynamics, and accidentals. So before we even get into the first concept, let's take a look at what playing the piece heavily means. The sense of weight in a piece of music, especially in simple time, especially in time signatures like 2/4 and 4/4, it comes from accenting strong beats. It also comes from having a good awareness of when rests should happen, how long rests should be, and when to stop a note when a rest begins. So the first thing we're going to look at is playing in simple time, right? This piece is in simple quadruple time, and subtle accents on the stronger beats, which are beats 1 and 3, not only help bring out the sense of time to the listener, but it adds to the weight of the sound. The second thing about it is, in a piece like this, timing is extremely important. Accurate timing is imperative to bring out the heavy feel of the song, especially in bars with rests. You can see bars 1, 3, 5, 7, pretty much every odd bar has a rest in it. And it's important for the candidate to be aware of the time, to count the time accurately, to mute the strings when they're not required to be ringing out. So this brings out techniques like this, reading the rests, knowing exactly where they are. It helps bring out the sense of the piece.
And I'd just like to add here, Ritvik, that
Yes,
looking
ma'am.
at the piece, it's very, very simple. It only has crotchets and minims. That's it. But it is so dangerous to have just the same type of notes because keeping time becomes doubly difficult.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we have to be human metronomes when we're playing stuff like this. Right. Going next into performance directions. So context and contrast are established in this piece through performance directions, and they are to be followed closely. So for example, in the second half of the first page, you can see lines 3 and 4 have a bunch of phrases in them, and the phrases need to sound like they're being played in a single breath, so to speak. So in between phrases, we have some time to catch our breath and then move on to the next phrase. It makes the melody sound more vocal, more relatable. So be aware of where the phrases occur and where the parts in between phrases are as well. Fortunately, over here, most of the phrases are followed by rests, so that's some level of that's a little bit relieving. And we can take a look at bar number 10. At the end of bar 10, we have a direction that says piano in dynamic and ponticello as well. So what is ponticello? For those who don't know, just in case, ponticello is a technique where you pluck the strings close to the bridge. And this produces a nasal sound and kind of a harsh tone. We usually associate ponticello with louder sections, with more strident or bright sections. But the fact that it's been counterintuitively paired with a piano dynamic helps to bring the listener's attention in quite an unconventional way. So these instructions, ponticello must be known, how to play a ponticello cleanly must be known as well. Moving on to dynamics and articulation. Dynamic changes allow us to accentuate the heavier sections even more and establish a sense of contrast. If everything follows the same dynamic throughout a song, the song loses its sense of space, its sense of meaning. It starts becoming very monotonous. So dynamic changes help to break that monotony and keep the song interesting. And finally, in terms of articulation, this page is not being shown here, but there's a staccato and an accent on the last note of the song, and it adds a little bounce to the sense of the song and helps to end it conclusively. So this, along with the ponticello and natural directions, the natural direction is on the next page as well. It helps to prevent the song from feeling dragged. And finally, a sound understanding of accidental markings is required to maintain notational accuracy. You can see from bar 7 onwards, there are accidental markings throughout the piece. There's lots of them peppered all over the place. So we need to be aware of how to read these markings. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Ritvik. Uh, so now we're going to move on to another initial grade piece, and this is for piano. It's Boogie, and simple piece, but lots of theory in it. And Akriti, I'd like to invite Akriti to present this.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, everybody. Let's look at Boogie by Karen Daxberg from the initial grade syllabus. The important theoretical concepts in this piece are time signature, syncopation, tied notes, and accidentals. Let's talk about each of them one by one. So coming to time signature, the time signature of this piece is 4/4, and as you can see, the left hand is continuously playing 4 beats, 4 crotchets in a bar, except for the last bar. So this helps the performer as well as the listener clearly feel the beat and the time signature throughout the music. The different types of notes used in this piece are quavers, crotchets, minims, and semibriefs. It is very important to understand the value of these notes and be able to count them accurately. This will make it very easy for the performer to learn and play the rhythm of this piece. If you observe in bar 9 and 10, we've marked it in red, we have syncopated patterns. Now, if you know what a syncopated pattern is and what it does to the music, it becomes easy to anticipate the shift in the expected accent, which helps convincingly project this in your performance. The piece is also filled with tied notes. A lot of the bars, some of them are marked in blue, as you can see in the score, have tied notes, and these need to be held to their full value. Moving on, we're going to talk about notes, accidentals, and intervals. Now, throughout the piece, the right hand only uses 4 different notes, very basic: C, D, E flat, and E. But here, the knowledge of the flat sign, becomes vital. It will help the student very easily shift between the major third and the minor third. So if you observe, the first 4 bars is using C and E, which is the major third interval, and the 5th and 6th bar uses C and E flat in the right hand, which is the minor third. Throughout the music, the right hand alternates between the third and the second interval. Looking at the left hand also just alternates between the 5th and 6th interval. It does shift the hand position with the change in harmony. So the knowledge of intervals will help observe these patterns and learn the music much faster. Be able to playing it would become much easier. Now, the style of this music is a boogie woogie, and that typically follows the 12-bar blues chord progression, and so does this piece. So notice the first 4 bars, they're using the tonic C major, and the left hand uses the bass note C throughout. This changes in bar 5 and 6 when we shift to the subdominant, in this case F major, and a hand shifts down to F, then back to C, then down to G in the 9th bar, up to F in the 10th bar, and then ends with C again. Now, there is also a note in the end, which is 2 ledger lines down, which might be difficult for an initial grade student to read. But if they know that this is in C major, this bar, it's the tonic triad and it ends in C major, then they would easily be able to remember to play that C at the bottom. Not only the left hand, the right hand also shifts, changes the melody, not shifts hand position, sorry, but changes the melody with a change in harmony. So if the student knows the harmony of the piece, it becomes very easy to bring out these right hand changes.
Thank you, Akriti. That was really, really comprehensive and useful. We are going to move on to a slightly higher grade piano piece, and I'd like to invite Priya to take this. It's from grade 6, and it's a Haydn sonata in C major, the finale movement.
Thanks, Anjali. So as we see, as the grades become more advanced, the theoretical concepts also increase in complexity. In this piece, which is the last movement of a sonata, the following concepts of music theory, of course, are important to know. First of all, stylistically and contextually, you need to know the features of the classical period. There's a structure in this. It's a long piece, so of course it's very well structured. And the harmonies, the form, the relationships of keys. And once we listen to a lot of classical music, that is music of the classical period, you will understand how these key relationships are important to understand and interpret. And same goes for the cadences and of course some interesting rhythmic features. So before anything, we need to know the form. Now the rondo form here, now rondo of course simply means round, which means that there is a main theme or a principal theme called PT, which keeps coming back and which is interspersed by episodes. So every time so recognizing that principal theme, recognizing the difference in the episodes, enables the performer to give a very smooth and a well thought out way of returning to the main theme every time. And of course, Haydn as a composer was very witty, very clever, and he's actually aided by the performer by giving a little suspenseful pause, like a fermata, just when you're coming back to the principal theme. And all these things need to be exploited really well to give the piece this lovely, lively and happy feel. So there are two episodes here, bar 26 onwards and bar 54 onwards, which have been marked for you on the score. And the principal theme, of course, comes back in bar 46 and 68. So every time it comes back, it's maybe got a little addition or something to it, and that also must be seen. The key relationships, also very important. The principal key is the C major. And of course, the theme is in that, but there are other related keys. Right in the beginning, it moves to the dominant major, of G. Then in the first episode, and then it goes back to C, of course, at the end. When the first one comes in, the music moves from G major, it goes on to, which is the dominant again. Then it goes to F major in bar 40, and then 2 bars later to the relative minor of F, which is D. All related keys, but anticipating them and knowing that each one has a different flavor and conveys a different mood is important. So this modulatory process continues with the moving from G to arrive back at the principal theme and back to the home key. A rondo is a constant return to the beginning. So the key change then to the tonic minor of C, or the same name minor, it goes on to the relative major of E flat and then back to C minor. This again can be brought out. So understanding these kind of processes actually really helps the performer to give a very well thought out interpretation by using certain dynamic nuances to convey the changes of key and mood.
And I think if I may add here, Priya, more than anything, it also helps them to remember. It aids the memory of playing, and when they know that, okay, I'm here in F major, I'm going to be very soon moving into D minor. Why is this happening? So they find it easier to learn the piece if they understand what these key changes are all about and why they are happening.
Absolutely, Anjali. I couldn't agree with you more. In longer pieces like this, to understand the structure, the grammar of the music, and to understand the keys really helps in learning it. And of course, playing it without having to constantly look at the score, which does, of course, impede the playing. You are not able to engage fully with the music if you're always looking at the score, even though you can have it in front of you. So likewise, the role of cadences, recognizing those cadences in musical structure, is important. This helps because it helps you to shape the phrase. Every cadence is moving, your music moves towards a point, and that point is the cadence point. It's the tension that is built up in the music has to relax. So there is a perfect cadence, for example in bar 8, needs a little more emphasis, needs a little building up towards it to bring out a sense of completeness. Now in contrast, you have an imperfect cadence in bar 70, and your playing needs to convey a sense of something is not quite finished, something still remains to be said. So understanding actually even the nature of the cadence is very important. How to build up or how to maintain a certain pace or how to give a sense of mystery the cadence really helps here in all of these. Coming now to rhythm, there are some rhythmic features which we have encountered in other pieces. One is triplets, which we know they help to give a sense of excitement and building up, and that is evident in bars 34, 37, and 93 onwards. All irregular rhythms, I would advise, should be known because they are used so often as creative devices to give a certain effect to the music. In this one, you have triplets. In others, you can have other irregular rhythms, and really, this is something that does need to be known. So that's it for this piece. Yes, Anjali?
Thank you, Priya. Thank you so much. A lot of theoretical stuff there, important when you're learning this piece. I had Vinita raise her hand twice. Is there something you'd like to share, Vinita? Vinita Fernandez, I think. If you do, just put it in the chat box. Otherwise, we'll move ahead. You can put it in the chat box at any time or the Q&A. I have something. Okay, by mistake. Yes, I know, Vanita. It's very easy to do that because the controls are so close to each other, and one does hit that raised hand button more often out of just mistake. Okay, so we are done with piano now. We did an intermediate level piece in the Monday webinar, and we are moving on to violin. So I'd like to invite Faith to please take the violin part, but I'd just like to say a few words about the instrument and its relationship with theory. Like the guitar, the violin also uses the treble clef only. So the notes of the bass clef are not generally learned, not considered important. But I think all violinists must remember that it is an instrument that is played with accompaniment to be complete, as well as an ensemble instrument in an orchestra or in chamber music. So it is necessary to know the bass clef so as to understand the role of the other players. Especially when you're doing a violin piano accompaniment, it's really necessary that the violin player is able to follow what the accompanist is doing. And of course, knowledge of all other concepts of music theory are very important to be able to recognize and interpret the written score. So yes, Faith, please go ahead with La Captive.
Let's go through this grade 4 piece, La Captive, which is a rather sad and melancholic piece composed by Amy Beach. Amy Beach was an American composer, post-romantic, and known for her hauntingly evocative melody works like the Gaelic Symphony. Okay, today we will go through a few concepts like time and rhythm, performance directions, dynamics, keys, and articulation. So first we will talk about time and rhythm. Going through the time signature, though it's commonly used 4/4, we've got to keep in mind that the pulse must be securely felt because we are moving from crotchets into quavers, into semi-quavers, and back again. And we also use a lot of slurs in this piece. So having a very secure idea of the rhythm theoretically will help us with our bowing, especially when we need to control the bowing across different rhythmic structures. Triplets in bar 18 and syncopation must be understood to fit into the mood of the specific sections. Tied notes require realizing the full value of the beats, and then it helps in smooth bowing and also bow budgeting, which is basically it's like a breath. You take a breath and you sing, and we use the bow that way. This piece is mostly, we are moving on to dynamics right now. One moment. This piece is mostly about the dynamics, and thorough knowledge of these and how to use them for the appropriate bowing is necessary, and also where we can put in our vibrato. The direction at the beginning of largo con molto
and the tempo marking help us with indicating that it has to be played expressively with a broad and smooth projection of tone. Changes are many and frequent, like you have your pianissimo to forte, the crescendos, diminuendos, con passion, as well as dolcissimo. The morendo at the end requires great bow control as it goes through quite a few bars. Grace notes need to be known here. The acciacatura in bar 6 and the difference between similar looking ornaments and their rhythmic value must be known. Phrasing is exceptionally important and should be understood as well in this piece, because phrase marks go through bar lines, across bar lines, and to go correctly using our weak and strong bow or the up and down bow, this is very essential. The key signature of the piece is in B flat major, and we have modulations moving in bar 6 to 8 using the relative minor of C, and then using the raised 7th moving into the dominant major of D. Mostly as violinists, we would rather just read through the piece and not really take a look at the key changes. But while going through this, I noticed that our key changes also reflect the mood, and that helps us to play along, make that melody more meaningful. The many moods expressed through dynamics are mirrored in some surprising key changes. Most notably at the end of the piece, which doesn't go back to the tonic key of B flat major, but ends on the G major, the last 3 notes are the broken triad or the arpeggio of G. Identifying key changes through the first reading of the score reveals how necessary a theoretical knowledge is for effective interpretation of playing. I think we're done now.
Faith, thank you very much. And can anybody give me the name of the theoretical name when you start in a minor key and end on a major key? Just put it in the chat. I'm hoping we will get quite a lot of answers for that. And Faith, I didn't really want to scare you before you started, but when I spoke about Rita Vaz, not only is she a violinist, she was one of the best theory teachers in Calcutta. So, Faith, but you did a great job. You did a great job.
I practiced, ma'am, today. I practiced.
So
Faith,
practiced.
TFC,
so,
Picardy third. Yes, lots of people know this. Wonderful.
Yeah, so a lot of people probably don't know, but Faith was extremely nervous to do this, and we insisted she do it because we knew that she'd do a great job with it. So, and I think she has done a great job.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
I think most
why is the third coming in here? Picard third.
Yeah.
Picard third Picardy.
TFC de Picardy. Why the third?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of guessing the third is there because the third is in the chord changes from the major to the minor.
Because you raise the third to the major.
Yes,
third.
yes,
That's why
absolutely.
the third, yeah.
Okay, so we now move on to a very popular instrument, the electronic keyboard. So while the keyboard is an instrument that does not require too much note reading in the left hand again, like the other instruments we spoke about, there is a lot of music theory knowledge that is necessary to be able to understand and play the pieces as required. It's an instrument that divides into rhythm and melody sections within its 61 keys. Thus, you need to have the knowledge of both things, note reading and time and chord knowledge. It's all about rhythm and the incessant rhythm that keeps going with any kind of a style and the changing chords. So understanding the chords in the rhythm section, for the rhythm section, and understanding and knowing the notes for the melody section makes it quite a complete instrument as far as theory is concerned. So here I'm going to hand over to our expert from Kochi, Gopal, who's going to take you through two pieces of the electronic keyboard syllabus.
Thank you very much, Anjali ma'am. So here we have a piece from the grade 3, the Arkansas Traveler. So the theory concepts we discussed here are the key signatures and the keys, the primary chords, the intervals, rhythm, and melodic devices. Can we, yeah. So first, let's look into some rhythmic features here. And this one piece in the score, as we can see, it's dominated by a lot of duplets. And in between, we do have some interesting.
Can you hear me?
Understanding the theoretical concepts would be of great help in executing this.
Gopal, I think we lost you for a bit there. So if you could go with the triplets. Did the others hear it or was it me?
No, ma'am. We didn't hear it.
Yeah, so Gopal, just go with the triplets again.
Okay, is it okay, ma'am? Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, looking into the rhythmic features, we find some triplets here. As we see in the score, this is very well dominated by duplets. So a good understanding of the triplet rhythm, how to include 3 equal quavers onto a beat would be of great help to make an effective performance here. And a quick look into some very important melodic devices. We find the sequences in the second half, sequences wherein we have the same rhythm pattern with different set of notes, as we can see in the line number 4, a descending note pattern. And the very first 3 bars of the piece, it's a great example for the ostinato, the repeated note pattern, the notes A, E, and of course the ascending note pattern as we see there. And the second half of the piece, it's pretty much busy for a grade 3 level with a very fast pace over there. And this is a great example to understand what a passing note here is. And we very well see a lot of notes being included there as a fillers, and passing notes do play a big role in a great performance of this same piece. And interestingly hidden are some ornaments in the form of the Achyakachura, as we can see. And to understand how this can decorate the performance is of great importance, and how that leads to the principal note would be of great help in a good execution of the piece here. And we do find the same in bars number 6 and 10. Let's look into some of the chords and keys. Of course, this is an A major. The 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp, a great understanding and would help a smooth flow of the piece. And we have some minor scalic passages as well. And this can be very well applied in the melody line. And another interesting feature of what we see here is the chord pattern. The primary chords, the chords built on the 1st, 4th, and 5th degrees. And in this particular piece, we find the entire piece is being supported by the primary chords of A major, which is A, D, and E. A great example to learn how the primary chords can support a whole piece of music and how strong that is built. A quick recognition of the intervals is very much possible. The very first line sets a great example as well. So we find the notes A, E, and it's being played 3 times the first 3 bars. And what is being learned? It's the perfect 5th. And listening to that and understanding the perfect 5th interval would have a great impact in the performance. And we can practice the same by bringing it down to G, D, F, C. In a way, a kind of transposition is also possible. So understanding the theory of intervals would be of great help in performing this piece. Let's move on to one of the grade 5 piece, the Washington Post. The theory concepts discussed, notes and rest grouping, the compound, time signatures, the modulation, cadences, chromatic passage, enharmonic notes, and the chord knowledge. Yes, the compound time signatures, as we all know, this is a 6/8, and it's a great understanding of how a 6/8 is built, the two dotted crotchet beats, and a clear understanding of the two beat in compound time to give the piece its march character, and how each beat is divided and how it is grouped, how dotted crotchet is completed before we move on to the next one, where the grouping, where the beaming is involved, how a beat is to be completed. Understanding the same will give a much better meaning to the march seen here, and knowing the rules of grouping of notes and rest will help in the interpretation of the piece. And the key signature here is a B flat, as we can see, and we do find a lot of accidentals, some sharps, naturals there, and very interesting feature is what we see here at the enharmonic notes. In the very first page, we find a lot of C sharps and D flat. It's very much visible there. So understanding the concept of enharmonic equivalence and enharmonic notes and a smooth passage of the fingers. And of course, this results some chromatic passages, and knowledge of the chromatic scales and the enharmonic notes will help in the easy reading and a better playing of the piece here. Excuse me. The chords, and we find a good example of the broken chord, the B flat major broken chord in the first inversion in bar number 45. A smooth flow of the fingers is indeed very much helpful in the performance. And the two-part writing, as we can see in bars 27 to 32, a perfect place to understand in a many form how important it is to write a two-part form and how each part should be complete in itself, and how one single stave could be used for writing two different melodies or melodies for different voices. So we get to understand definitely the two-part writing here. And finally here, very important, the cadences. The perfect cadence act as a musical full stop and is made by the dominant chord followed by the tonic. We do find the same in the last line of the first page in the form of G7 to C. In the second page, we find the C7 to F. And the second page, second half, of course, there is a small modulation happening to the B flat. And there again, we find the cadence happening from F to a B flat. And of course, the performance of the cadence, definitely it gives us an expectation of happening something new after the perfect cadence. And these are very much present at the ending of sections as they prepare the listener for something new and must reflect in the playing. And in this piece, we do find some different voices as well, apart from something new in the music. And that understanding the cadence would be of great help in the performance of this piece here.
Thanks a lot, Gopal. It was very comprehensive explanation of the theoretical concepts in these two pieces. And our last piece for today is from the classical guitar, and it's a grade 6 piece, Etude for Ornaments. Now, the classical guitar is an instrument that has been around for centuries. Its simplicity has allowed it to lend its sound to countless forms of music and styles right across all genres. And it is unique that the classical guitar technique is still evolving and changing through time. Thus, it enables the player to make it sound as traditional or as modern as the composer would desire. So it's a wonderful instrument, and it does have a lot of theory involved in its music. And I'm going to invite Ritvik back to take you through this.
Right, so we're going to talk about the grade 6 classical guitar piece, Etude for Ornaments. This has been written by Leo Brouwer. Now, composers like Leo Brouwer and Fernando Sor have been known to make etudes which are technically supposed to be simple technical exercises based around a certain set of skills, and turning them into works of art and proper musical, beautiful, listenable compositions. So I found that this would be a perfect candidate to talk about applying music theory, because there's so many concepts that have been covered here, and they've been woven together in a way that it's very easy to listen to, despite the fact that all these concepts, when listed out, might seem quite daunting. So the things we're going to cover right now about this piece, firstly, we start with harmony, then we're going to look at performance directions, then dynamics, key changes, and finally articulation.
I'm sorry, Ritvik, it's not in the same order, but it's all there.
That's all right. So to start with, key changes and harmony. This is a pretty cool thing that we observe here, that this piece is divided into two halves, and the first half is in D minor, but the second half is in D major. Now, stylistically speaking, the minor sections are played forte and in a pseudo quasi baroque style. And they facilitate the use of appoggiaturas and acciaccaturas. You can see these grace notes all over the minor sections of the piece. And we can feature these grace notes and these techniques by placing them on stronger beats, that is the 1 and 3 in a simple quadruple time signature. Of course, variation has been created by placing them on weak beats as well, but you can see them as a feature throughout the minor section. Now, the major, I think we can move to the next slide.
I think we can move to, I'm sorry.
Yes, no problem. Yes, so the major section, in contrast, sounds very modern, and we can see a lot of straight 16th notes played together, and it gives the piece almost a country pop feel. It might be kind of ludicrous to say that about a classical guitar piece, but it's true. Leo Brouwer is a modern composer, and this writing is a brilliant example of how one can blend modern and traditional ideas into a single piece. Because the spread voicings and the broken chords that have been used here and the staggered arpeggio shapes, they're quite reminiscent of Bach cello suites. So you can see that there is kind of a tie that, kind of a thread that ties the minor and the major sections together stylistically. You can see that broken chords have also been used throughout the piece as another common thread that ties both these sections together. And if a key change from a minor to its parallel major weren't enough, contrast has further been created by employing a more strident style in the darker key of D minor, which is again counterintuitive, and a mellower style in the brighter D major key. Up next, we have performance directions. The poco più mioso and the diminuendo in the fourth line, I've written third by mistake, I apologize, and the crescendo and rallentando from bars 29 to the DC al coda create timing and dynamic changes that grab the listener's attention and indicate a change in the mood of a piece. These techniques, these devices are great to create transitions, to create a sense of change, to build up the listener's anticipation to a new kind of sound that follows in the rest of the piece. So being aware of how to execute these, what they mean, and where they're being employed is also very important. Now, using such changes and understanding these dynamic and timing changes through the piece, of course, and especially through the coda, helps to end the piece more conclusively in a darker and softer mood. I think my presentation, my video is frozen.
You're okay, we can hear you.
Right, yeah, I wasn't being able to see the next slide, I'm sorry. Okay, I can see it now. So we're talking about articulation and melody now. We can also see that the minor and major sections have been separated by use of certain techniques. Like in the minor section, there were a lot of grace notes. The D major section focuses on legatos or slurs, and we find them placed almost exclusively on strong beats to feature them in the section. Variation has been better exemplified here through rhythmic subdivisions rather than using grace notes, and we can see a fair number of 30-second note sections that are interspersed throughout this part of the piece. Melodically speaking, position changes enable a much wider range of notes to be played, so it's important to be aware of the bar symbols and where we must put our hands when we're playing this piece, put our fretting hands rather. And of course, using these barred shapes and playing higher up the fretboard gives us a mellower sound, so we come across a timbral variation along with a variation in pitch range or register of the guitar. So it allows, and playing bar chords, of course, allows all the notes of the broken chords to ring into each other to reinforce that country pop feel that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah, so I have the recording of this, which we are going to play for y'all, because you will then understand better all the points that Ritvik has made about this piece. So enjoy Etude for Ornaments. Here goes. Okay, so it had everything an exercise would have, from broken chords to scale passages and accents and everything, slurs that's necessary, but it was a piece in itself. And some very nice. The recording I don't think was that clear, but unfortunately that's all I could, Ritvik got his hands on. And um, with that, we kind of come to the end of this session. And just for what is coming up in August and September, uh, we have webinars for the stylistic techniques for rock and pop instruments. And that will be for guitar, bass, drums, keyboard, and vocals. There'll be separate ones for separate instruments. So look out for information on the dates and the timings for these webinars. Thank you very much, everyone, for sparing time on a Friday evening. I hope you found it useful. Is there anything in the chat that we need to address? I'll stop the share now. And I'd like to thank my team that was a very, very slick job, I think, if I may say so myself. You did a great job. And yes, the video will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, and we will provide you with the link. So I think all questions, there's not much questions. Okay, so thanks a lot, everyone. Good night. Have a great evening and weekend ahead.